Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I am finally going to be filming my best and worst books of 2019, and I always get excited to film these yearly wrap-ups because, at least to me, it feels like every single year I find a new author that I'm really passionate about and want to read everything that they produce. Like in past years, maybe it's been Renee Denfeld, Karen Slaughter, Gillian Flynn, Michael McDowell, and for 2019 I do not have an author like that, and I'll be honest, that's maybe why I've been holding off doing this video a little bit. I do have some wonderful books I'm excited to talk about, but overall it wasn't a particularly memorable reading year, at least to me. I mean, we had the creation of the Year of Horror Book Club, which was so much fun, and I'll have that link down below in case you want to join. But in terms of, you know, favorite books I discovered this year, just being upfront and real, it was a little bit lackluster. And I do think that's because this year has been, and I've said this before in my past couple of videos, 2019 was really stressful. And I'm hoping 2020 won't be like that. And I'm curious for you guys, when you are stressed, do you tend to read more or less? Because I personally, when I'm stressed, I'm much more inclined to like lay in front of the TV than I am to pick up a book. So maybe that's sort of why I didn't come across as many wonderful books as maybe I have in past years. But I do want to end this video on a positive note. So I'm going to start off with my least favorite books. And before I get into them, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have already seen this, but I know not everybody has Instagram or follows me, which is completely fine. But I've discovered my new favorite artist, and just because I talk a lot about horror, I wanted to show this to you guys. To be clear, I'm not sponsored in any way, shape, or form to talk about this. I was sent it for free, but that's it. But this is from Redbubble, and the artist is Stephen Rhodes, and everything he creates looks sort of like a really fucked up version of a children's book cover. And so this one, hopefully this is actually in focus, but it's kids learning to do shadow art, and then at the very end there's a kid learning how to do the devil, which I just find very amusing. So I'm obsessed with all of his stuff now, and I'll have the link down below if you want to get this, but again, not an ad, just sharing because I love it. So starting off with my least favorite books of 2019, these all fall into one genre, so I'm not going to spend time dissecting each, and I don't think I've talked about any of these on my channel just because I don't have a lot to say about them. If I really hated a book, especially if it was popular, you guys know I would do a review, but these were just kind of meh for me. First is Whiskey in a Teacup by Reese Witherspoon, then is The Last Black Uniform by Tiffany Haddish, and then Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. And you'll notice a trend there where it's all autobiographies of comedians. I haven't done a statistic, but I'm pretty sure like 80% of the books I read are by women. I just tend to gravitate towards books written by women just personally, so it's not like a thing that all my least favorite books were written by women. Most of my favorite books are also written by women. But I think what I've learned this year is to stop reading comedians' autobiographies because I really did not enjoy these. Especially, I'll say the biggest letdown was probably Bossy Pants, only because I've heard so many wonderful things about it, and I personally found it very dull and very, very forgettable. And I love Tina Fey. I think what I've realized is that I only want to read autobiographies about people whose lives I'm already very interested in going into the book, not that I'm interested in the content they generally produce. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not that intrigued reading about Tina Fey or Reese Witherspoon's life, even though I might love what they produce. And with The Last Black Uniform, I have really mixed thoughts on this because some parts of the book I thought were completely hilarious. Other parts I wanted to skip over, and I'm curious if any of you guys have read this because I've heard a lot of sort of mixed discussion about this online, especially because of a part in the book where she's talking about a sexual relationship with one of her coworkers who is a person with disabilities, and especially in the audiobook she's sort of mimicking her voice, and I know a lot of people got pretty upset by that, which having listened to it I do think is understandable, but I am curious if any of you guys have read it, what you thought about it, but I have overall sort of mixed thoughts on that one. So now we're gonna get into the much more fun part of this video, which are my favorite books of 2020. Excuse me, see, I already want to skip 2019 in my brain. Does anyone else feel this way? My favorite books of 2019. So these are in no particular order, and I actually think the first one, although I will say the one I'm about to talk about is probably my favorite, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. Now, for most of these books, I have full reviews on them without spoilers, so I'm not going to go super in depth just because you can search most of these books on my channel and you'll find full reviews. But Sadie is a mystery thriller about a young woman who comes from a very impoverished town and family, and she is on the hunt for her little sister's killer. This is an incredibly raw, very, very dark book. And I know I won't say anything. All I'll say is I really enjoyed the ending. A lot of people despise it, which I understand. But this is an incredibly powerful book, and it's rare that I care about a character as much as I cared about Sadie. I find myself thinking about this book all the time, and I really want to go back and reread it eventually down the road, which is also pretty rare for me. Then is All Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. Now, before I say anything about this, again, I have a full review. I highly, highly recommend listening to the audiobook because something about the way it was read just really touched me. But this is a true account of Michelle McNamara. She wrote the book, and she was also researching and trying to figure out who the Golden State Killer, this serial killer and rapist in California, was for years and years and years. Just extensive research. Unfortunately, she did pass away. I think it was right before this book was published, and I won't say too much else, but just her drive and the incredible amount of detail and how passionate she was. And it's, of course, I don't consider this a spoiler, so just saying this up front because this is not in the book anywhere. It's just something that happened outside of the book itself. But during her lifetime, she was not able to see the Golden State Killer be captured, and it's just incredibly tragic, and also the type of book where once you read it, you're gonna fall down a black hole on the internet reading your own about this case. But again, incredibly powerful, especially if you want to read some true crime nonfiction. Next is a book I read because of the Year of Horror book club. Now, I think I read the first book in this series years ago, but I read the rest of the series for the first time this year, and that is Uzumaki by Junjo Ito. This is a manga series about a town where everyone is dying left and right, and it's because of spirals. And it's interesting how, first off, the graphics in this are beautiful. The drawings are stunning. I really want to buy some Uzumaki clothing, but if you just Google it, it's very disturbing looking, and I don't want to like make people around me uncomfortable. Maybe I'll get some prints if I can find some and hang them up in my apartment. But I think it's fascinating how he can take something so mundane and innocuous and just every day as a spiral and make it so terrifying. It really is true that when you read the series, you will never look at a spiral again the same way. And finally, this was a surprise favorite when I was looking back at the books I read in 2019. This was one I went into thinking I would enjoy, but not thinking that I would love, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Actually, I don't know why I did that with my hand. I have the physical copy here, and I love this one. I got it at a used bookshop, and it's very, very old. I loved going through this. Pet Sematary is really difficult to describe without giving anything away, although at this point I don't know who doesn't know the basic plot line. I will say, hated the 2019 movie that came out. I do not recommend it. I think the version, when did it come out? Was it the 80s? That one is kind of campy, but also so much fun and pretty scary, so I recommend the original. But it's been a while since I've read a Stephen King novel that I really, really adored. For someone who loves horror, I just don't read too many of his books, but I thought that this book, how it deals with grief, some passages where, for example, I'll just say, I think the metaphor is he's running on a football field. Is that what it is? It's been a while since I've read this, but you'll know what scene I'm talking about if you've read the book. Feel incredibly powerful, and I wasn't expecting to have this book make me feel the way it did. I really thought it was just gonna be, you know, a fun horror novel I would forget about in a year. So those were my favorite books of 2019. Please let me know, are there any books in 2020 you definitely want me to review? In the past few years, I've been really focused on book of the month. From now on, I think I kind of want to search on my own, and that's also a video topic I might have for the future, so let me know if you're interested to hear me talk about that. Nothing against book of the month, I love it, but I think sometimes because of it, I wasn't going out and searching and finding new authors. on my own, like I just said 2 seconds ago. So if you'd like to hear me chat about that, let me know in a future video. But again, let me know what were your favorite books of 2019. I'm not just saying that to get comments. It was not a wonderful reading year for me, so if you read a book in 2019 you think I would love, please share with me and everybody else down below so people can also discover some new wonderful books to read in the upcoming year. I hope 2020 is going really well for you guys so far, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.